What's up everybody and welcome back. This is the NBA Fanatic, Johnny P, and today bringing you another video, and today we're talking about women in the NBA. Now this is something that we're going to have to start concentrating on because moving forward we're going to see more and more women involved in our association. Now the reason I talk about this today is because I had a conversation with my buddy Daniel a few days back about if Brittney Griner would have made it or could make it in the NBA. And then everything with Becky Hammon just popped up, and I said now's a great time to talk about this stuff. See, Brittney Griner, I'm sure you remember, but let me refresh your memories if you forget. About 2 years ago or so, as she was coming out of college, she was coming out of Baylor. She was the best player in women's college basketball in the NCAA. And Mark Cuban had said that if she was the best player on the board in that draft, she would have gone to the Dallas Mavericks because he would have drafted her. Now, that's really, really interesting. Got everybody's wheels turning and thinking about would she have made it. Now, granted, that was 2 years ago, but I'd like to revisit that now that she's put some time in the WNBA because she is arguably their best player right now. She's very, very dominant. She's the type of player who other coaches have to change their game plan to play against. Now, she's listed as 6'8", 205 pounds. She's a 2-year pro. Like I said, she came out of Baylor. She was the number one pick to the Phoenix Mercury. And she was already Defensive Player of the Year. It really shows you that her size helps her out on the WNBA level. So far, she's averaged 14.7 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, and 1.4 assists. And her career average is at 3.44 blocks a game. She is a defensive juggernaut. You don't want to drive in on her. But on the WNBA level, 6'8" is huge because the WNBA player averages around 6 foot tall. Now in the NBA, that's actually pretty average because the average player is 6'7", 6'8", somewhere in that size range. So she's actually average when it comes to height, but as far as weight is concerned, listed at 205, 208 pounds, depending on where you see her stats. That's actually undersized as far as weight because the average NBA player is roughly 220, 230 in that range. So she's actually undersized when it comes to weight. So in the women's game, she uses her height and she uses her strength to dominate on the boards and play that post game, where in the NBA she's actually undersized and her strength would not necessarily be one of her assets. And I think it's really interesting because her size, with her size being the way it is, she plays as a center, but in the NBA she would have to get kicked down a notch because again, that's not center size in the NBA. Now somebody like LeBron at 6'9" is just a muscular beast. Now he can play in the center position, but that's not his ideal position. So imagine somebody even smaller than him, and in my eyes a little bit slower from what I saw when I actually watched her play on TV. I don't think she could play center by any means. So she would probably have to transition down to a small forward or possibly power forward spot, but she would be listed as a forward. Now, where she suffers in that sense is she plays as a center probably her whole life, and then she transitions down to a small forward. So the game is totally different. It's a different speed at the forward position. Now, her handles would suffer greatly. And think of a guy like Anthony Davis. I wrote this down here. Anthony Davis, when I've mentioned this before, but he started training as a guard when he was younger because he was smaller. Now he's still a big dude, but he wasn't no 6'10", 6'11". He trained as a guard, so he had the handles, but then he hit his growth spurt, and now he plays just big, right? So he had the handles and transitioned to a bigger position. That's a much easier transition than going from a larger position down to a forward position because your handles especially are going to suffer. And generally speaking, your decisions on the floor are going to be a lot different, especially when you think about the ball itself. Even the ball is slightly heavier, slightly larger than the ball she's been playing with her whole career. So it would just have a different feel. And we're not even talking about the psychological differences. Now, these are purely physical things I've talked about. Now, think about psychologically speaking. Like the Warriors going into this upcoming season. They're the champions. So everybody's going to be gunning for them, right? Everybody wants to prove themselves against the champions. They are the measuring stick. So with that being said, if Brittney Griner was to come into this season, she's the new thing. She's the measuring stick. People are going to play tough against her, not only just because she's a woman, but because so much media would be surrounding everything about her. She would be under a lot of pressure, and it takes a really, really strong person to be able to deal with that pressure and be successful. I'm not taking that away from her. I'm not saying she couldn't do that, because she has been in that spotlight before. But this is on a whole new level where, historically speaking, women haven't played in the WNBA. So it would be really interesting to see how she does. Now, I didn't write another little note here that says, if you remember Muggsy Bogues, he was a Charlotte Hornet. That's what everybody knows him for. And he was super, super, super undersized. He was like 5 foot tall. But he was able to make a successful NBA career because he altered his game to work around all these big guys. So maybe there's a way she could alter her game to kind of stack up. It would be interesting to see, instead of putting her right into the NBA, like what if we put her in the Summer League or put a player in the D League? See how they do, see how they fare, instead of going straight to the association. That was just an idea that I had. Now, I don't necessarily feel women should play in the NBA. Not just because they're women, just because I don't want to see them crossing lines. Like, I wouldn't want to see a D-leaguer trying to go to the WNBA because he can't make it to the association. I mean, I don't necessarily like the crossovers. I think the WNBA is cool because it's all women and because they have their own thing going on. And the NBA is the same thing. But if somebody wanted to give it a shot, I wouldn't be super opposed to it. I just think it's cool to keep it separated, but whatever. I respect all opinions. I'd like to see what could happen. Now, I also want to talk about Becky Hammon. You might recognize this name because in the news, now you might recognize the name because she was a superstar player. We're talking about an Olympian, a champion, all-star. I can go on all day. But Becky Hammon is an assistant for the San Antonio Spurs, who just led the Summer League team to their first, their title, their Summer League title. A team that's just been barely played together, kind of tossed together, and they won. This is a good reflection, not just on the San Antonio Spurs, because we're not talking the starters here. We're talking about backups and guys that need to be tested out. So it really is a good indication that she's a great coach. She's learning under Greg Popovich, and let's be honest, who wouldn't want to learn under that guy, right? He's the best coach in the league by far, and it's really interesting because in my research of her, not that I had to do much because it's Becky Hammon, but she played for the Silver Stars, WNBA team, which is based out of San Antonio. So she was in the perfect environment to grow, and I'd love to see this. I'd love to see her be successful. Now, Greg Pop said he would coach out the rest of his contract. Does this mean he's kind of grooming her to take his place? Totally crazy to think about. That's like a game changer right there because we haven't seen that before. But she's obviously headed in the right way. She can be successful, and they just, with all the signings they have, especially Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge, they're going to have a good team for years to come. So I would love to see her take over one day. And we're even seeing female referees now, people on the court who are making these decisions and stuff, and I love it. I love seeing what the NBA is striving towards. When you look back years ago and look back, you know, on these last few days, things that have been being accomplished, I mean, we're really making progress, and I absolutely love it. So I challenge you. I challenge you to let me know your comments in the section below. I want to know, do you think Brittany Griner, or really any other WNBA player that you could think of that has some serious skills, could they make it in the NBA and not just be a backup point guard or something like that? I'm talking like legitimately get playing time. And what do you think about the Becky Hammon thing? Are you as excited for her as I am? Do you see this being game-changing? Because I truly, truly do. I'm excited for her. And again, I wish Brittany the best of luck in her career in the WNBA. She's dominating. I hope she continues to do that. I hope things in her personal life get themselves ironed out, because I know she just went through some stuff. But hopefully she'll get things figured out, get back on a roll. And again, thank you for tuning into this video. I appreciate all the support very much. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.